reality is that most British journalists are afraid.
That's not GBNews.
Journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
We're here to talk about things in a way that have never been broadcast on British Airways before.
Do not miss a moment on GB News.
The #1 news channel in the country. Good morning, live from Washington DC, this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. And breaking tonight, Kemi Badenoch is demanding Sir Keir Starmer end the cover-up and order an investigation into Lord Peter Mandelson and his links to Jeffrey Epstein. That's as the former minister quits the Labour Party and faces the prospect of being hauled into Washington to give evidence to Congress over what he knew and when.
Is your money dirty money?
If you look,
Just ask a question. Is your money dirty money? Do you think you're the devil himself?
Plus, even more bombshell revelations. This is a fascinating interview which I'm going to share with you shortly. It's emerging from the Epstein files, including one of the last raw, unedited interviews with a convicted paedophile by Steve Bannon. That coming in just a tick.
We have the biggest, most powerful ships in the world over there, very close. Couple of days, and hopefully we'll make a deal. If we don't make a deal, then we'll find out whether or not he was right.
President Donald Trump warns Tehran they have just days to make a deal or find out why there's talk of war.
I mean, FIFA have always said, oh, we don't want to get involved in politics. Now what do? They give a peace prize to Donald Trump. So don't get me started on that.
Oh, Polanski and Lineker, that's a nightmare duo, eh? Has Gary Lineker just scored a major own goal? Because it's being touted tonight he could be banned from entering the United States this summer for the World Cup. That's over his criticism of the American government and, of course, President Trump.
Greenland, officially a territory of Denmark, now a new power is making its move on the island.
I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force.
And as Trump ramps up his push to secure parts of Greenland, tonight we bring you an exclusive first look at our brand new documentary from the region, On the Ground, where the stakes are rising. I'm Ben Leo. This is The Late Show Live. Good morning. Thank you for your company. Welcome to The Late Show Live. Joining me in Washington this evening is my panel, the US political reporter for the Daily Mail, Victoria Churchill, and the border security and immigration specialist, Simon Hankinson. And I'm delighted to say, down the line, back in Blighty, in London, GB News superstar, Paul Cox. Good morning, Paul.
Hello.
Thank you. We'll see you in just a sec. Right, let's move on to our main news this evening, and it's a bombshell. It's breaking. Lord Peter Mandelson has resigned from the Labour Party, saying he doesn't wish to cause further embarrassment over his links to Jeffrey Epstein. And by the way, I argue tonight massive questions for Sir Keir Starmer. Mandelson's resignation comes as pressure mounts on the Prime Minister, with Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch demanding he ends what she calls a cover-up. In a damning post on X today, Badenoch said that if Keir Starmer had a backbone, he would launch an immediate investigation into claims that Mandelson and his husband were sent money by Epstein at a time when Mandelson was Labour's business secretary and acting deputy prime minister. Badenoch added, the government have refused to set out how exactly he came to be appointed in the first place. This is an international scandal. Hear, hear, Kemi, I completely agree. And those demands follow the release of millions of files, of course, by the United States Department of Justice, which revealed emails showing Mandelson telling Epstein he was, quote, trying hard to amend government policy on bankers' bonuses in 2009, shortly after a 50% super tax on bonuses was announced following the financial crisis. That was by the then Chancellor, Alistair Darling. So these are bombshell emails. They keep coming. The documents also show that financial transfers from Epstein to accounts connected to Mandelson worth $75,000, and of course including his boyfriend as well. Lord Mandelson has since said he does not recall receiving those payments, and he's reiterated his regret for, quote, ever having known Epstein. He's also pledged to investigate those payments so he can see for himself. But the files further show that Mandelson maintained contact with Epstein after his conviction for child prostitution offences, including discussions about staying at Epstein's properties. So In the United States, sources close to the House Oversight Committee, which is a committee in Congress, say Mandelson is expected to be summoned to give evidence in Washington as part of a widening congressional investigation into Epstein's associates and enablers. But tonight, Mandelson insists he's done nothing unlawful, and Sir Keir Starmer has also previously said he would never have appointed Lord Peter Mandelson as the ambassador to the US if he'd known the full extent of his relationship with paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. Joining me in Washington, as I said, is my panel, Victoria Churchill and Simon Hankinson. Good evening to you both. Simon, for me, I mean, Mandelson, we've known about his relationship for some time, but also, my point tonight, so did Keir Starmer when he appointed him last year to the job of ambassador. His defence to the Prime Minister is, yeah, but we didn't know the full extent. That's fine, even if you knew 1% of the relationship. What are you doing appointing this bloke as ambassador to Washington?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question. What was the 1%? You know, the fact that he went out to the island, the fact that he'd met Epstein, which wouldn't in itself be completely damning. The part about the money, that really piques my interest. I mean, what was the money for? Was he, you know, delivering some kind of promise? He was doing some business on his behalf. So I think if he'd known all of that, definitely shouldn't have sent him out as ambassador. But he did the right thing in recalling him, I think.
Well, he had no choice. I mean, he shouldn't. I give no credit, sorry, Simon, to Starmer recalling Mandelson. He had no damn choice. He shouldn't have appointed him in the first place. And for me, Victoria, this just poses massive questions over Keir Starmer's judgment. When you had slack judgment anyway, calling a grooming gangs inquiry far right, winter fuel payments, whatever, his judgment is in the gutter. But this proves it's not just in the gutter, it's just in the depths of completely just out of whack. What's Starmer doing?
I mean, that's a good question. I know that Starmer has done, as you just pointed out, a lot of very interesting things that kind of make you go, And of course, this is not just the least of it, really, with Mandelson. But, you know, of course, we look at Mandelson, but we also look at Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He's also somebody that Congress is hoping will come testify. I know when we talked about the Epstein victims press conference before the new year, you know, we had urging from members like Ro Khanna, like Thomas Massey, that saying they want Andrew to testify. And, you know, I think Mandelson should definitely be on that list as well.
Yeah, well, the former Prince Andrew should as well. I mean, let's be honest, they're not going to. They're not subpoenaed to come to Congress. They can't be forced to. But if they had anything about them, if they had some balls and some respect for Epstein's victims, they would come to Washington and testify. But for me, as I said, the bigger question tonight is Keir Starmer. His judgment is terrible, and there's many reasons for Keir Starmer to resign. He's the most unpopular Prime Minister in British history. This, I think he should resign for. His judgment is terrible, and he's made Britain look like a laughingstock in front of the US administration. This is what President Trump said about Starmer appointing Mandelson sometime last year. Take a look.
The elephant in the room, Lord Mandelson, he is no longer the ambassador. Do you have some sympathy with him that he lost his job over historic links to Jeffrey Epstein? Thank you very much, sir.
I don't know him, actually. I had heard that, and I think maybe the Prime Minister would be better speaking of that. That was a choice that he made, and I don't know. What is your answer to that?
Well, I mean, it's very straightforward. Some information came to light last week which wasn't available when he was appointed, and I made a decision about it, and that's very clear.
I'm sorry, for me that's not good enough. Some information came to light, Simon. As I said, maybe Starmer wasn't aware of the information we have now in this latest trove of Epstein documents, but we know that Starmer knew, Number 10 knew, the Foreign Office knew there was a previous relationship. So again, I ask, what was Starmer thinking appointing him in the first place?
You know, I don't know how carefully the Prime Minister vets people who he appoints as ambassadors. I know in the United States we've occasionally sent, duds out there, and later on they get recalled by the President because he can recall them at any time.
But he's the boss, right? He's the CEO.
Yeah,
Whether it was some lackey who appointed him and didn't do his due diligence, Starmer's the CEO. Any normal business, Starmer would pay the price.
Yeah, he has to take responsibility for his picks, for sure.
Victoria, do you think, as I've just said, these Prince Andrew or the Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, Lord Peter Mandelson, do you think they'll come to Congress?
I mean, we can't even get the Clintons to testify. We've got coming up on Wednesday, at least by the latest projections that I've seen, we have a contempt of Congress resolution that will be brought up before the full House, about, of course, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton refusing to come testify. So I think even if we, especially since we can't even get the Clintons to come testify, I think getting somebody from overseas will be even harder than the Clintons. So, I think actually one thing that we can look at this Clinton contempt, charge vote that we're looking at later this week, this, I think, could serve as a precedent for people from overseas like Andrew and like Mandelson to not come to the U.S. because they'll saying, you can't even get your own former top leaders to come and testify before Congress. These ties were known.
I'll say again, I said in the handover to Alex a few moments ago, Alex Armstrong, I am sick of calling these people Lord Peter Mandelson, the Right Honourable MP for so-and-so. Like, they're the most contemptuous people. Mandelson denies all wrongdoing, so does Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, whatever. But their judgment, if you just want to go on that, being generous to them, is terrible. Why should there be Lords of the Realms? Why should there be Right Honourable anything? This is what Keir Starmer said last year on why he appointed Mandelson in the first place.
I knew of his association with Epstein, but had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him. Because what emerged last week were emails, Bloomberg emails, which showed that the nature and extent of the relationship that Peter Mandelson had with Epstein was far different to what I had understood to be the position when I appointed.
So authentic, so genuine, Keir Starmer. Well, let's speak to political editor for Times Radio, Anna Mikhailova. Anna, thanks for joining us tonight. Somebody on gbnews.com/your say has said, are you honestly saying there wasn't vetting months before Mandelson was put up for such an important role? Watch the Diplomat series. It shows exactly what the US think of the Brits. I mean, that last point's by the by, but it just baffles me, the appointment of Mandelson in the first place, Anna. I don't know if you can explain maybe the rationale behind the Prime Minister's appointment.
Well, there definitely was vetting, and there was information given to Downing Street from the security services. We know all that. What we haven't had is detailed information about what that vetting involved. And when Mandelson had to resign the first time around, when he was recalled from Washington, there was a lot of pressure on Downing Street to reveal exactly what was known. There was pressure from the press. We kept asking Number 10 repeatedly about this, and there was also a lot of pressure from Parliament, so from MPs and peers who were saying they need to know. I mean, the Conservative Party in particular was pushing this, and the justification at the time was that it would effectively set a precedent. You can't reveal that sort of private information because then that opens up too many other people to having information that is by definition top secret, disclosed. But I think, as you rightly point out, there are going to be so many questions asked about the Prime Minister's judgment on this. And I think that those calls to see exactly what was known are only going to intensify now. You have to understand that when this appointment was made, Peter Mandelson was playing a key role in getting Keir Starmer into Number 10. He was crucial in providing a lot of key connections for Keir Starmer's administration and for the people around him to meet with people who are influential, people who helped the campaign. Lord Mandelson is extremely well connected, and he used those connections. He was a pivotal member of that inner circle, with links not only to Keir Starmer personally, but also to people like Lord Ali, another key figure in getting Keir Starmer into Number 10. And so when he became US ambassador, that didn't come as a big surprise. So, and remember, even when those revelations started coming out in the autumn, a few members of Keir Starmer's government went out publicly to defend Lord Mandelson and trying to keep him in post. But that proved impossible eventually. And of course, now that we see what else is coming out, that it would never have happened. It would have, if it had happened then, it would have happened today. I think where the story goes now is, the big question is, does he keep his peerage? Lord Mandelson is currently on leave of absence from the House of Lords, which means that his affiliation to the Labour Party, while he's resigned the whip, remains well, I haven't been able to get a full answer yet about what exactly the status of him in the Lords is. He is technically a Labour peer, but because he's on leave of absence, he doesn't hold the whip actively. So the government wouldn't be able to strip him of the Labour whip. But I think, the question of why is he a peer at all will remain.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, Anna. It's I think it needs an act of Parliament, but as you said, I don't think that can be done until Mandelson is sort of back in the mix. You look at the former Prince Andrew, who was completely stripped of his titles. I see no reason why now, if it can be done, that Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, as I keep going back, I hate now saying Lord Mandelson and the Right Honourable. It makes me sick, actually, seeing what this whole Epstein scandal, the victimisation of women and girls, the seedy ring. I know Mandelson's denied all knowledge. He was mates with them anyway, which is bad enough. But calling these people lords of the realms and the kind of respect that those titles are meant to earn from the everyday Joe public who are just struggling to pay their bills. I mean, I'm being a bit emotional about it tonight, but it just makes me sick.
Well, I think, what you strike is an interesting point about people's relationship to politics, because a lot of people will agree with you, Ben, that cases like this, and this is not the first scandal to hit the House of Lords, makes people lose respect for those titles. So I think the question doesn't so much become why should we be using the titles, but people start to lose faith in those institutions which previously were held up with respect. And it's doing a disservice to those peers who do genuinely do good work. And there are a lot of them among the 900 or so that there are. And that's why people are so furious within Parliament when you see someone like Lord Mandelson remain in the House of Lords. I mean, I was about to go on the radio tomorrow morning and report calls from MPs for him to lose both the peerage and the Labour membership. I mean, he's given up one of them, and now the question will be about the peerage.
Yeah, Anna, thank you so much. Fascinating speaking with you. I could do it all night, but for now, I'll leave you to it. Thanks for your company, and we'll catch up soon. That's Anna Mikhailova, the political editor for Times Radio. gbnews.com/your say. Paul, you've said, Ben, you don't have to call them lords if you don't want to. It's not written in law that you have to. Yeah, I know, Paul. I hear what you're saying, but they still do have the title, and they waltz around as if there's something special amongst, the little people. Anyway, still ahead on the Late Show Live.
Is your money dirty money?
If you live,
I just ask a question. Is your money dirty money? Do you think you're the devil himself?
Goodness me, he's a creepy man, isn't he? I know, we rarely hear interviews or hear him speak, Jeffrey Epstein, but this interview with Steve Bannon has dropped in the Epstein files. It was released years ago, but more bombshell revelations are emerging, and including that question about whether Epstein is the devil himself. His answer on that in just a tick. Don't go anywhere.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
World Cup is a joke. I think FIFA giving Donald Trump a big rosette and a peace prize has undermined everything that football's about.
Welcome back to the Late Show Live. That was John Bishop there. The celebrities are lining up to slam President Trump and FIFA, but I'll tell you why that could end up being a very public own goal in just a tick. But first, let's return to that breaking news this evening that Lord Peter Mandelson has resigned from the Labour Party, saying he doesn't wish to cause further embarrassment over his links to Jeffrey Epstein. Shame it's not Keir Starmer as well. Tonight, Mandelson insists he's done nothing unlawful, and the Prime Minister has also previously said he would never have appointed Mandelson as the ambassador to the US in the first place if he'd known the full extent of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Meanwhile, though, here in the United States, President Trump has also been reacting to the latest tranche of Epstein files, saying a lack of new allegations against him is a blow to the, quote, radical left, as he describes them, and that he's been absolved. And among the millions of files is now a nearly 2-hour-long interview in which Jeffrey Epstein was asked whether he had dirty money and whether comparisons could be made between him and the devil. It was interesting. Take a listen.
Is your money dirty money?
If you live,
I just asked a question. Is your money dirty money?
No, it's not. So, in fact,
why is it not dirty money?
Because I earned it.
But you earned it. We went back to this before. You earned it. You earned it advising the worst people in the world. You're a mathematician. We walked into that clinic where they're giving that money out to these people that are in the most dire straits of poverty and sickness, and told them that the money was coming from a, what are you, class 3 sexual predator?
Tier 1.
Was tier 1's the highest and worst?
No, I'm
the lowest.
I'm the lowest.
You're the lowest. Okay, tier 1, you're the lowest. But a criminal.
Yes.
That the money came from them. What percentage of people do you estimate? I understand you don't like probabilities. Do you estimate would say, I don't care, I want the money for my children?
I would say everyone said, I want the money for my children.
Did they know where the money came from?
I think if you told them, if I told them the devil,
100%.
The devil
himself.
The devil himself said, I'm going to exchange some dollars for your child's life.
Do you think you're the devil himself?
No, but I do have a good mirror.
It's a serious question.
Sorry.
Do you think you're the devil himself?
I don't know. Why would you say that?
Because you have all the attributes. You're incredibly smart. You remember the devil is somebody knows
smart?
The devil's brilliant. You read Milton's Paradise Lost.
No, the devil scares me.
I mean, it's quite chilling watching that. When he's asked, are you the devil himself? He hesitates before answering. He then looks around and then gives a nervous scratch of the head when he tries to answer again. I mean, it's weird because we see a lot of Jeffrey Epstein. We see the headlines, we see the emails, we see the news stories, but we don't very often see him speaking or him being interviewed. He's was a very strange guy. I mean, he's clearly a creep, obviously, it goes without saying. Victoria Churchill and Simon Hankinson are back with me now, and also still with us is political editor at the Times Radio, Anna Mikhailova. Anna, I thought I was letting you go, but you're back with us, so thank you so much for staying with us this morning. Just on the wider aspects of the Epstein saga, what do you make of that clip you just saw there? Had you seen that when Steve Bannon asked Epstein if you're the devil himself? What was your take from it?
It's as you say, it's pretty chilling, and I think it highlights how little we do actually know about the man himself. I think most of the tapes I've seen are the ones from his previous, the first conviction, those tapes. But mostly he's just saying there that he's not going to comment, and we've never really heard him speak. And this is why there is so much pressure on both Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and Peter Mandelson to go and help the investigation, to accept the invitation to testify before Congress. Very few people expect them to actually agree, but I think we've got more people coming out now in tomorrow's papers saying that they need to go forward. They need to help shed light on how exactly all of this works. If Congress believes that Peter Mandelson has crucial information about Jeffrey Epstein and how he operated, then people think he should go and help, and that's the least that both of these men can do for the victims and their families.
Yeah, front page of your sort of sister establishment, The Times, tomorrow, is new Epstein victim. A new victim has come forward and said, I was sent for sex with Andrew. So this new victim claims that she was sent to the UK by Epstein for Andrew, and she stayed, unbelievably, allegedly, at Royal Lodge in Windsor Great Park, and then was given a tour of Buckingham Palace after allegedly having spent the night with the then Prince Andrew, which of course he denies. He was pictured on the front page of your paper, The Times, in Royal Lodge yesterday, looking, pretty shaken, if we can see the front page of The Times in just a second. The Met Police are being encouraged now, Anna, to reopen an investigation into Andrew. What do you think will happen with that?
Well, we wait and see. I think the police usually are very hesitant to reopen investigations. They tend to say, if they've looked into something, they tend not to reopen those. But, there's a lot of political pressure now. I was in China with the Prime Minister, and he made clear that he thinks that Andrew should go and help out in the, he should go and testify. So obviously the Prime Minister did not comment on the police and whether they should reopen the investigation, but it's clear by him saying that the victims should be the priority here and that Andrew should go and help how he can. That again will only pile further pressure to look at this in more detail.
Okay. Simon, what's your take on the wider Epstein scandal? The documents keep coming. Why didn't the DOJ just release these all at once? What's the thinking there?
There were millions of documents and videos, and they were saying that they wanted to protect any potential victims. They didn't want to release the names of any of the women who were involved. They're obviously concerned with people's reputations. So they went through it, but probably not with a fine enough tooth comb, because apparently there were some documents released where the name is redacted in document 1, but not redacted in document 3, and people can see between the lines. So that was the reason why they delayed it. There was just too much to go through.
And just on President Trump, he says he's been absolved with this latest release. One email I saw relating to Trump from Epstein to somebody said that Trump either refused or didn't have any massagers at Epstein's place.
I think it's starting to look better and better for Trump. You saw that picture. I still can't get it out of my head of Mandelson in those, banana slings. What is that about? Is that a business meeting? I just want to know the context to that. But there's no photo of Trump. So if nothing has come out about him now, then I sincerely doubt whether there's much there. So.
Yeah, and also, who was going around? We discussed this last night briefly, Victoria. Who was going around taking pictures of Mandelson in his pants, in his Y fronts, and Andrew on the floor with somebody laying down? Did those people, Mandelson, not think it was weird someone was going around with a camera?
That's a good question.
Maybe it was a secret camera.
Well, I don't know if it was a secret camera. Some of them, people looked like they were very aware that picture is being taken. Obviously, I know that we see Ghislaine Maxwell in a lot of the pictures, but I think it might have been her in a lot of those situations. If we look at some of the other pictures that come out, it seemed like she was very much partaking in whatever interesting activities were going on, so I would not be surprised if that was her. And also going back to Congress, Ghislaine has also been requested to provide testimony by the House Oversight Committee later on this month, and actually just about a week on February 9th. They're saying she might plead the fifth, or in consultations with the attorney she might not say anything, but she also might say something. So that'll be a start of a very interesting week in Congress if they can get Ghislaine to talk about anything.
Yeah, I'm sure Ghislaine knows a lot more than anybody else. She knows where the bodies are buried, maybe quite literally.
Literally or
maybe quite literally. It wouldn't surprise me.
metaphorically.
Anna, before I let you go, what's your assessment of President Trump? Has he been absolved in all this? My argument's always been, Anna, that they tried to impeach the guy, they tried to jail him, they debanked him, they tried to close his businesses. I mean, you could argue they, whoever they are, tried to kill him twice as well. So if there was anything really pivotal on Trump, it would have come out by now, no? But what's your take?
Well, I think, we've had 3 million documents just released, and obviously people will be looking at them with a fine-tooth comb. But as you say, so far, since Friday, there have been no more photos or anything particularly incriminating. Obviously, there will always be people who start to suspect the worst and say that that's been redacted, political pressure's been put on the DOJ somehow, that they've been covered up. But, that's always going to happen. And I think in terms of Donald Trump's position, it certainly hasn't been weakened by all of this, and it hasn't had the impact to his base that some thought and hoped it would.
Okay, great stuff, Anna. Thank you very much. That's Anna Mihalova, the political editor at Times Radio. Let's go live now to Tiffany Brannan, who is the host of the very great Tiffany Marie Brannan Show. Tiffany, hello. Thanks for your company this morning. Let's talk about Trump, shall we? Has he been absolved? Is he clear?
I absolutely think so. I think that this is just yet further proof that, as you and I have discussed before, that there is nothing in those files to be found. The reality is that if there was, it would have come out under the Biden-Harris administration. It would have been the best campaign fodder of all time for Kamala Harris to win, the election in 2024. It would have been plastered on Times Square. You would have seen it at every possible news source around the world. But to see that they have millions and millions of pages of documents that have come forth, and, as you guys have just said, it's so difficult to go through all this and go line by line, and also to protect the victims. And what the DOJ, I think, is really trying to do is fight against people that have Trump derangement syndrome while also protecting the victims, because we do have to remember that there are victims involved in this horrific case, and that the files contain a lot of horrible real crimes, but also there is a lot of crap in there that should never have been in there, that was just, added in case of emergency, or possibly by people that were just collecting a ton of evidence that has nothing to do with the actual case.
Yeah, that picture we just showed there of President Trump with a load of women and the faces redacted. I think it was the Dems on the House Oversight Committee who released those as part of their evidence. But those pictures were out already years before without the women's faces being redacted. They were models at one of his, as far as I remember, some beauty contest or something like that. It was very innocent. They were just models. But for some reason, the Democrats released the picture with them redacted as if President Trump was up to no good. I mean, so there it is. There's the picture. That picture. Yeah. And what does that tell you about the sort of intention behind the Democrats?
Well, here's a fun little tidbit. My sister was actually Miss Arizona USA when Trump owned the Miss United States, or the Miss USA pageant. And so she actually was there, front and center when he was still owning the pageant. So there are, thousands of photos of him with young, eager contestants, because to get a photo with him was like getting a photo with the big boss. It was a really big deal. This is the guy that owned the potential, for your future. You got an internship. He was so wonderful to all the Miss USA contestants, and I can say that from very personal, up close experience. So there are going to be thousands and thousands of pictures of him out there like that. And the fact that the Dems are so seedy and are so intentionally malicious and full of really snake venom with their TDS, that they have to go out and black out photos that are readily available on the internet of girls that were proud to have their photos taken with, the president of the owner of the organization, is just ludicrous, and shows the lengths that they will go to further this narrative.
Tiffany, thank you so much. I love speaking to you. We'll catch up soon, hopefully. That's Tiffany Brannan, host of the Tiffany Marie Brannan Show. Thank you, Tiffany. gbnews.com/you'll say. Lots of you saying, Ben, you're asking for comments and not reading any out. David, you said we keep being told how good our security services are. Are we now to believe that nobody knew about high-profile people being involved with Epstein? And somebody's replied to you, David, called Sini. You said, it's just like they didn't know about Savile when he has such a close association with the Windsors. Gaynor, you've said, with reference to Mandelson in his pants, maybe he's looking at the menu for lunch. And Peter, you've said plane loads of highly paid female and male escorts are flown into Davos each and every year for the World Economic Forum globalist gathering. The lid needs blowing off these people. Well said. Right, coming up on the Late Show Live.
We have the biggest, most powerful ships in the world over there, very close, couple of days, and hopefully we'll make a deal. If we don't make a deal, then we'll find out whether or not he was right.
President Trump hits back at Iran's claims that the US is looking to start a war and sets a deadline for a deal on nuclear weapons to be struck. Will they be striking Iran next week, or will the Ayatollah come to the table and agree some sort of deal? We'll find out shortly. But first...
I mean, FIFA have always said, well, we don't want to get involved in politics. Now what do? They give a peace prize to Donald Trump. So don't get me started on that.
I'll tell you why. Gary Lineker has Netflix bosses deeply concerned about his ability to host the FIFA World Cup. And President Trump is playing a bigger role than you might expect. Will Lineker be banned from the US? Back in a tick on The Late Show Live.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You have the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. Right, former footballer and broadcaster Gary Lineker could be barred from entering the United States following his outspoken social media attacks on Donald Trump. So under tougher US visa rules that allow officials to scrutinise up to 5 years of online posts, Lineker's past comments could count against him, potentially putting his role hosting Netflix coverage of the World Cup this summer at risk. And it's understood that Netflix bosses have described the situation as disastrous and deeply embarrassing. Still with me in Washington is my panel, the US political reporter at the Daily Mail, Victoria Churchill, and the border security and immigration specialist, Simon Hankinson, and down the line in London, GB News superstar, Paul Cox. Paul, good evening. Thanks for your company.
Good evening.
On the surface, I'm a bit not sure about this. I don't like banning people for what they say and what they think. It goes against everything I stand for, actually. But what's your take on this, Paul?
Yeah, much agreed with that, Ben. I wouldn't want to see anyone banned. Basically, what I would like is a little bit of honesty about this, because the idea that Donald Trump at no point has ever said that he was going to ban any players from the World Cup, that the World Cup was under any threat of the stuff that ICE are involved in. That's just made up by the left, as far as I can tell. And I've tried to find if there's any stories. They've actually gone to the extent of making exceptions for sporting players and personnel. So I don't see this as actually being a real issue. This seems to just be a political grift, and they want to point out having the World Cup under Donald Trump is a bad thing. You know, they wouldn't have said this about any other president whatsoever. And by the way, good evening, Simon and Victoria. How are we doing?
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, Simon, what do you make of this? Again, as I said, I don't think it's a good idea banning people for their thoughts and their language. But there is a real consensus, especially at the State Department, about banning people who, for example, are maybe pro-Palestine, not just pro-Palestine, but globalise the intifada idiots and adults.
Well, I have some expertise in this because I've done maybe 50,000 visa interviews, and I've excluded people.
You have?
Yeah. I was a consular officer for 23 years, so I've excluded people for many reasons under the Immigration and Nationality Act, and being a plonker isn't one of them. You have to break the law. You have to be seen as a national security threat by the president or a foreign policy threat by the Secretary of State. So they do have wide discretion, and I suppose if they really wanted to, they could ban him. But I see that as very unlikely. There's lots of people come to America, 50 million a year, and not all of them like us, and some of them say mean things.
If being a plonker was a reason for deportation, I'd probably be on the next BA flight home, Victoria.
Well, you know, we do know that these social media posts are being scrutinized, but again, I'm not sure of any case, at least so far, where this has been used as a reason to not let people into the country. Now, you know, I do remember covering just a few months ago now, there was the case of the British national who was sent back home, who was kind of one of these globalized, the intifada types that was going around and kind of stewing up, at least the way that I view it, stewing up, you know, unrest among these pro-Palestine types. And, you know, he was, by some of the media here in the US, he was described as a British journalist, and then, you know, it really was disclosed that he was somebody that was really stirring up, you know, nonsense. And, you know, I do think that we should be scrutinizing people that want to come into this country and do damage here. But I also think that, of course, we are the nation of free speech. You know, unlike Britain, right? You know, you've had people on this very show that have been banned from coming to the U.S. by the British government because they don't want them out of the country criticizing Britain in the U.S. So.
Yeah, well said. It's Britain. Well, it's not Britain. It's Keir Starmer and his commie government who ban people and jail people for tweets and wrong think. But there is this consensus, Paul, that all these lefty lovies are saying, oh, I'm scared of going to America now on holiday to Orlando because I might get arrested by ICE, like Giles Coren, the Times columnist the other day. You know, as if ICE care about you, Giles. Get off your high horse. And then the likes of John Bishop. Let me show you this clip now of John Bishop saying why he thinks the World Cup should be boycotted. Take a look.
I think the World Cup is a joke. I think FIFA giving Donald Trump a big rosette and a peace prize has undermined everything that football's about.
Should the World Cup be boycotted, Paul?
No, of course it shouldn't. And by the way, no one's going to do so. I love the fact that to have subtitles under John Bishop. No one can understand Scouse, even in this country, let alone outside of this country. But of course not. No one's going to ban. You try and stop some of these players and managers going, by the way. All this rhetoric now, this far out from the World Cup, is all very good. It's political grifting, as far as I'm concerned. But when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, and those teams are in the World Cup, everybody's going to want to go. They won't care where it's being played. They'd play it on the moon if that's where it's being played. They'd play it absolutely anywhere. They'd play it in Iran. It would just get played. So I don't think any of this makes sense. By the way, I just want to pay homage to Simon, by the way. Tonight we've had banana sling and plonker. Simon, hats off. Congratulations. Great stuff.
Yeah, well said, Paul. gbnews.com/your say. Michael said Lineker should join the Labour Party as they're always scoring own goals. Yorkshire has said, thank you, Ben, for reading out a few more comments. You're welcome, Yorkshire. There's another one. And Carol has said, just on Epstein, old men with young women, vulgar to see, especially when breeding in old age. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, a few more going on. Paul, thanks very much. Maybe I'll see you at the World Cup if I don't see you before then. I'm certainly going to enjoy myself. Somebody else has said they're looking forward to this summer's World Cup. I am too, because GB News, hopefully, we will be following every cough and spit of Scotland and England's progress. England play their first game in Dallas sometime in June. Who's it against? I think it's against Ghana. And then Scotland at one point play Brazil in Miami, and I am going to be there for that. I'm hopefully going to be on South Beach with all the Scotland fans, drinking lager and whiskey and doing some live hits back home to Blighty. So it's going to be a hell of a summer. And I think Wales and Northern Ireland can still qualify as well. So, yeah, if John Bishop doesn't want to come to the World Cup, I will be, and so will many other people. So stick it, John. Right, still ahead on the Late Show Live.
Greenland, officially a territory of Denmark, now a new power is making its move on the island.
I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force.
Well, as President Trump ramps up his push to secure parts of Greenland, tonight we bring you an exclusive first look at our brand new documentary from the region, and it's one you really don't want to miss. But elsewhere on the show tonight.
The Brexit vote was a fair, democratic expression, and I will always respect that.
Breaking tonight, Sir Keir Starmer has blamed a botched Brexit deal for harming the economy. Isn't the truth that it has nothing to do with Brexit at all, and maybe just the incompetence, A, of this government, and B, due to the pursuit of stupid, insane net zero policies? We're getting stuck into that in just a tick.
Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Late Show Live. Let's take a look at these stories on the front pages of tomorrow's papers. Paul Cox is still down the line. Victoria Churchill and Simon Hankinson are here, of course, as well. Paul, very quickly, I don't want to stick on this for too long, but front page of The Sun is Lewis Hamilton apparently dating, who is it? Kim Kardashian. And they've had a fancy date in the Cotswolds. Do you care?
No, I don't care, Ben, and I'll be very surprised if anyone does.
All right, let's move on then.
But they always go to the Cotswolds, by the way, don't they? The Cotswolds. I mean, it's lovely, but what is it with all these...
Have you been to the Cotswolds?
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. Of course I have. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a nice... I think it's the last bastion of English society that isn't infected by uncontrolled mass migration. I do say to mates in the Cotswolds, you know, give it a couple of years, they'll set up an asylum hotel somewhere soon. But I think that's why it's so popular. It's beautiful, you've got great architecture, lots of history, rolling countryside, and yeah, I'll be honest about it, there's no migrant hotels around.
Well, absolutely, and we would expect nothing but honesty from you, Ben. But really, this is. I mean, it's good for Lewis, I guess. I mean, I remember he used to date Nicole Scherzinger, so I was quite envious of that at one point. But I'm not really concerned about this. I'll be honest with you.
Okay, yeah, I don't really care either. I like F1, so that was the only sort of. Simon or Victoria, do you care before we move on?
About Kim K? No, not really, but you know, it doesn't really seem like the rest of the world cares about her, so I guess we're going to keep seeing her on the front pages.
Simon, do you give a fig?
I've never watched the show. I do not understand why they're famous or billionaires, but you know, more power to them.
Okay, talking of the Cotswolds and the countryside, Paul, front page of the Daily Telegraph at the bottom, it says the countryside is to become less white in a rural diversity drive. So there we go. I just said about it, didn't I? I talked about the Cotswolds being untouched for a couple of years. Well, they're doing it now. The countryside is going to become less white in a drive to make minorities feel more included.
Well, I'm going to do this because, although it's an old adage, we should do it every time this happens. If you replace the word white with any other colour, this is a hideous, racist headline. Simple as that. You couldn't... Look, I'm not even going to put a colour in there, but you know exactly what I'm saying, and you know it's true. Would you not need to make the countryside less white? Would you not need to make anywhere less white? Would you not need to make Great Britain less white? There is nothing wrong with being white. The vast majority of British people are white. It's okay to be white, and if the countryside is a little white, who cares? Who is really caring about that? No, go on, Ben. Sorry.
I was just going to say, you sound like, who was it that got up in the Scottish Parliament?
Yusuf. Oh, what's his name in the Scottish? White. I was getting a bit carried away there. But look, it drives me nuts, this. The idea that people don't feel worried about going into the countryside in case they meet a white person. I've never heard anything like it in my life. Oh, I wouldn't go to the countryside today. There's going to be a majority white people there. That's not a thing. They're driving this change for all the wrong reasons. It's not a thing.
Yeah, don't go to the Cotswolds. You may bump into a white person who goes, poo. So the Telegraph, the story says the British countryside will be made into a less white environment under nationwide diversity plans. Officials in rural areas, including the Chilterns and the Cotswolds, of course, have pledged to attract more minorities under plans drawn up by the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, DEFRA. The plan follows DEFRA-commissioned reports that claimed the countryside would become irrelevant in a multicultural society as it was a white environment, principally enjoyed by the white middle class. Yes, please, and let's keep it that way. Simon, no?
I mean, Britain is a European country with Scots, Irish, Welsh, and English, and they all happen to be light of skin. There's no rule that I know of that prevents people of color from moving to the Cotswolds or anywhere else they want. They can buy houses, they can rent houses. Yeah, I simply don't understand this social engineering drive to make sure that every part of every Western country is exactly demographically, evened out and becomes steadily less whatever the indigenous population is. It's weird.
Victoria, is the countryside racist?
I mean, I think that you have to look at it in terms of socioeconomic status, right? And so I think if somebody can afford to live in one area, they should be able to do so regardless of what, ethnicity, gender, race, religion they are. And so, I think if the only barrier that you should be looking at is financial, those are the kinds of people that should live there. I think that you talk about, for example, gentrification in a lot of different areas, right? We don't even really, I think, talk about that too much in the US anymore because people are able to, have upward social mobility. They're able to get jobs in a variety of different places. And so if their paycheck, if their salary at the end of the day enables them to purchase property or rent property in a certain area, they should be able to live there. And I think that's really the only thing that we should be looking at.
I just don't understand why this only happens to Britain primarily. I mean, it's the white guilt, but you wouldn't go to Islamabad and say, well, there's too many brown people here, or you wouldn't go to Philadelphia or New Orleans and say, it's too black here, we need some more white people. I mean, you'd rightly be called racist. So I don't understand why it's Britain primarily and white people who are always on the receiving end of this racist nonsense, and it is racist. Paul, thanks very much. Stick with us. We'll catch up with you in the next hour. More coming up on The Late Show Live, including this.
You've been lied to. They told you a story about Britain. Colonizers, slavers, oppressors. Here's what they didn't tell you.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As the first week of February begins, the weather is still going to be very similar to what we saw in January. Many grey skies around and will be some more outbreaks of rain to come. Now, it was a chilly start, especially across Northern Ireland this morning. We had some icy patches here, but now things are starting to cloud over through this morning. We will see a few outbreaks of some showers across central England and Wales, and a bit more persistent rain across eastern Scotland as well. Winds here are pretty strong. We could see some gale force winds up towards those Northern Isles. Temperatures-wise, around what we would expect for the beginning of February, between sort of 6 and 9 degrees across the country. Now, this rain band across the south coming across the channel, that is going to move its way northwards. So we do have another rain warning across the southwest through this evening and into tomorrow. Plenty of rain there already, so the ground is pretty saturated. A few more showers across Northern Ireland, and that more persistent rain across Scotland will continue. A lot of that rain across those higher hills is turning towards snow as we go through this evening, and the winds are still remaining pretty strong across that eastern coast as well. Now, like I said, this rain will continue to move its way northwards. Places like Devon, Cornwall, Dorset have already seen over 200 millimetres across the course of January. So the ground is very saturated, and any rain that will fall will lead towards more flooding issues. But most places staying frost-free overnight. A lot of places staying around 3 or 4 degrees as we start Tuesday morning. Now, those rains towards the very far southwest will slowly start to ease through the morning, but otherwise a very damp start across the southern half of the UK. A little bit drier up towards the north, still clinging on to a lot of that cloud, but those winds again are picking up through the day, especially across that northeastern coast and those higher hills. But it will be a much fresher day to come. Temperatures up towards the north, highs of around 4 or 5 degrees.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point.
Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Live from Washington, D.C., this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. And breaking tonight, Kemi Badenoch is demanding Sir Keir Starmer end the cover-up and order an investigation into Lord Mandelson and his links to Jeffrey Epstein. That's as the former minister quits the Labour Party tonight in dramatic fashion and faces the prospect of being hauled into Washington to give evidence to lawmakers in Congress.
Is your money dirty money? If you live, I just ask a question: is your money dirty money? Do you think you're the devil himself?
Are you the devil himself? Even more bombshell revelations emerge from the Epstein files tonight, including one of the last raw, unedited interviews with the convicted paedophile. I'll bring you that very, very shortly.
The Brexit vote was a fair, democratic expression, and I will always respect that.
Breaking tonight, Sir Keir Starmer, our dear leader, has blamed a botched Brexit deal for harming the economy. So much for that growth. But isn't the truth that it has nothing to do with Brexit at all, and actually it's due to the pursuit of our insane net zero policies?
We have the biggest, most powerful ships in the world over there, very close, couple of days, and hopefully we'll make a deal. If we don't make a deal, then we'll find out whether or not he was right.
President Trump warns the despot Islamists in Iran they have just days to make a deal or find out why there's talk of war.
Greenland, officially a territory of Denmark, now a new power is making its move on the island.
I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force.
And I'm very excited to share this with you. As President Trump ramps up his push to secure parts of Greenland tonight, we bring you an exclusive first look at our brand new documentary from GB News on the ground in the region where the stakes are rising. I'm Ben Leo, this is The Late Show Live, and remember, no breaks this hour. Hello Hello, hello, good morning. Joining me in Washington this evening on The Late Show Live is my panel, the US political reporter for the Daily Mail, Victoria Churchill, and the border security and immigration specialist, Simon Hankinson. And in London is GBNews superstar. He's white. It's Paul Cox. Paul, good morning. Thank you. We'll catch up with you in just a tick. Right, let's move on to our main news this evening, and it's breaking news, and it's dramatic, and it's bombshell. Lord Mandelson has resigned from the Labour Party, saying he doesn't wish to cause further embarrassment over his links to Jeffrey Epstein. The resignation comes as pressure mounts on the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, with Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch demanding he ends what she calls a cover-up. In a damning post on X, Kemi has said that if Keir Starmer had a backbone, he would launch an immediate investigation into claims that Mandelson and his husband were sent money by Epstein at a time when Mandelson was Labour's business secretary and acting deputy prime minister. Badenoch added, "The government have refused to set out how exactly he came to be appointed in the first place. This," says Kemi, "is an international scandal." Well, those demands follow the release of millions of files by the US Department of Justice yesterday, which revealed emails showing Mandelson telling Epstein he was, quote, trying hard to amend government policy on bankers' bonuses in 2009. And that was shortly after a 50% super tax was slapped on bonuses by the then Chancellor Alistair Darling, and it was announced following the financial crisis. The documents also appear to show financial transfers from Epstein to accounts connected to Mandelson worth $75,000. Mandelson, for the record, has since said he doesn't recall receiving those payments and has reiterated his regret for ever having known Epstein. But the files further show that Mandelson maintained contact with Epstein after his conviction for child prostitution offences, including discussions about staying at Epstein's properties. In the US, sources close to the House Oversight Committee in Congress say Mandelson is expected to be summoned to give evidence in Washington in front of lawmakers as part of a widening congressional investigation into Epstein's associates and enablers. But tonight, Mandelson insists he's done nothing unlawful. Keir Starmer, meanwhile, he's also previously said he would never have appointed Lord Mandelson to the ambassador role to the US if he'd known the full extent of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. My big question all night has been, OK, that's fine, Keir Starmer, but you knew that there was some sort of relationship, even just 1% of it. So what were you doing hiring him for ambassador in the first place? With me in Washington tonight is my panel, political reporter for the US Daily Mail, Victoria Churchill, and the border security and immigration specialist, Simon Hankinson. Panel, welcome back. Yeah, we've discussed this briefly in the last hour or so. One question I didn't ask you, Simon, is should Mandelson now either rescind his peerage, Lord Mandelson, or should an Act of Parliament be proposed to strip him of his title, as we saw with Prince Andrew?
Well, I guess that that's his choice. I mean, his conscience is going to tell him how deeply he was involved in this, and if he wants to sort of make atonement by giving up his peerage, I guess he could do that. Or if the government feels strongly enough, they can take all the time that it would take to strip him of it.
Well, Mandelson has said that he needs to investigate himself whether he did receive 75 grand from Epstein. I mean, if that was me, even 20 years ago, if somebody sent me 75 grand, I think I'd know about it. But Mandy says he's going to investigate anyway and check his records, so very good. But if it turns out that he did receive that money and continue that relationship, he denies anything unlawful beyond that, should he? I mean, would you if you were a bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would at least show that he felt bad for what had happened. And 75 grand is a chunk of change that I wouldn't forget either. So
yeah. Well, maybe Victoria, he's so minted, Mandelson, that 75 grand is chump of change. Maybe he didn't remember that he received it from Epstein.
Well, I guess we don't know at this point. I mean, there might be more that comes out, of course, as more of these Epstein files are released. Again, it'll be interesting to see if he does show up. I know in the last segment I was saying if we can't even get the Clintons to show up, what tells House Oversight that they'll be able to get Mandelson to show up. But maybe there's something else that he can disclose about this relationship that he'll remember while he's going through his bank records. Yeah. That he thinks deemed worthy of public knowledge.
Yeah, well, my big point tonight is not so much Mandelson or Andrew, it's Keir Starmer, because Keir Starmer appointed Mandelson as ambassador to the United States. He was left in disgrace. He embarrassed Britain with the appointment at a time when he knew something about the relationship, even if it wasn't to the full extent that we know today. He knew something, Number 10 knew something, the Foreign Office knew something. This is the moment President Trump passed a question to Starmer last year when he was asked, why did you appoint Mandelson to the ambassador role? Take a look.
The elephant in the room, Lord Mandelson, he is no longer the ambassador. do you have some sympathy with him that he lost his job over historic links to Jeffrey Epstein? Thank you very much, sir.
I don't know him, actually. I had heard that, and I think maybe the Prime Minister would be better speaking of that. That was a choice that he made, and I don't know. What is your answer to that?
Well, I mean, it's very straightforward. Some information came to light last week which wasn't available when he was appointed, and I made a decision about it, and that's very clear.
All right, Keir Starmer was asked on another occasion about the appointment. This is what he said. Take a look.
I knew of his association with Epstein, but had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him. Because what emerged last week were emails, Bloomberg emails, which showed that the nature and extent of the relationship that Peter Mandelson had with Epstein was far different to what I had understood to be the position when I appointed him.
Right, to some other breaking news tonight. So Keir Starmer has claimed that the Conservatives' botched Brexit deal has harmed the economy. So, you know, on the election campaign, growth. We're talking about GDP and so on. It's not happened, but now they're blaming Brexit. The comments came ahead of talks with an EU delegation in London this week, where the Prime Minister is, surprise, surprise, said to want to get closer to the bloc on defence, energy and trade. Of course he is. Well, speaking to reporters during his trip to China and Japan last week, the PM said, quote, "It is absolutely clear that the botched deal we got from the last government has caused damage to our economy, which is why we have reset that relationship and do want to get closer on defence and security, on energy and emissions and trade." With me now still is the political editor for Times Radio, Anna Mikhailova. Anna, thanks for staying with us. No surprise, I guess, that Keir Starmer is more of a Europhile than sort of an American ally. I guess he's always been accused of having to make that decision. Do you want to cozy up to the EU or America? But blaming Brexit, does that have any sort of grounds to run? Has he got a point?
Well, you have to understand, Ben, that when he came into Downing Street and also in the run-up to the election, Keir Starmer was very, very keen to distance himself from his previous position on Brexit. Before he was leader, Keir Starmer led the charge on calling for a second referendum. So, of course, you know, his position on Europe is pretty clear. But in the run-up to the election, he was pretty adamant that there would be no re-entry into any single market or customs union or the return to freedom of movement. All he said in the manifesto was that they would seek a better relationship with the EU, so they'd renegotiate the Conservative deal, which, you know, he has criticised for a while now. What's changed recently is that there is a lot of people around him, so within the government, but also within the wider Labour Party, who think that the current position is a mistake and that they need to get closer to the EU. And a lot of people want the customs union. Some people are happy if it's just a single market. And what's been significant recently is Keir Starmer has increasingly lent into his natural position really on the EU and moved away from being quite strict about just saying, you know, Brexit is done, we're not going to, you know, people have cast their vote, we're not going to really look into it. And the way he does that is by saying that it was delivered badly. So he's blaming the Tories, and he's also using it as an attack line on Nigel Farage by effectively saying, whenever Brexit comes up, don't believe Nigel Farage, he promised you this and that, and it wasn't delivered. So, you know, it's an interesting strategy. There are some around the Prime Minister who are really worried that this will impact his relationship with Donald Trump and America, because as you point out, there's a tension there. Get closer to the EU, risk upsetting our biggest ally. And he's trying to walk this tightrope where he really sees the opportunity in terms of getting some growth through the EU, but he also sees the danger that it could jeopardise his relationship with the US.
And I guess Starmer and Labour are, well, Starmer particularly as the Prime Minister, he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, because if you look at the polling from the Gorton by-election in Manchester, Labour are losing points to the Greens, who are adamantly pro-EU. I think they advocate for rejoining the EU. And then also Labour are losing votes to Reform voters as well. So they're kind of like, okay, well, are you trying to go more to the right, or should you lurch to the left to make up for the ground you're losing on the Greens? Is that a bit of a headache, do you think, for the Prime Minister, Anna?
Absolutely, it's a really, really difficult position. And there are lots of people who look at this and say that the threat from the Greens is by far the most existential problem for Labour, because they're hemorrhaging those sort of Remainer votes to the Green Party, but also to the Lib Dems. And they say that he should be a bit braver. He should embrace the more pro-EU position, and he should say that he can renegotiate. They've done some internal polling, which has suggested that the people who were so keen on Brexit before and who saw it as such a dividing line don't necessarily see it that way. And it is something that I think Reform has cottoned onto as well a bit, because Nigel Farage doesn't talk about Brexit much, if you notice, and Reform politicians tend to steer away from it. Even at conference, they focus more on net zero, and that got a better response from the audience than Brexit. So I think there's a sense of people thinking there might be an opportunity here to try and use the EU and reframe it and seek a new position and a new arrangement and try and use that to get some economic growth. But there will be people there who say either that it's a Brexit betrayal or that it could actually hurt the economy, because it means you could potentially lose that access to other markets and other free trade deals.
Yeah, really interesting. And the point about net zero is interesting as well, about Reform. Konstantin Kisin, I know he's not a member of Reform as far as I know, but he was on Question Time the other night basically saying you don't get economic growth if you've got net zero. The two are incompatible. We'll try and get the clip to show viewers. But I argue as well with the Labour government, if you want growth, you need to ditch the insane march to net zero. But yeah, Anna, thank you so much for your company tonight. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Have a good rest of your evening and a good week ahead. Let's speak now to political commentator Matthew Stadlen, who's down the line. Matthew, good morning. Thanks for your company. Keir Starmer blames Brexit for economic woes. He's just passing the buck, isn't he? He was promising, him and Rachel Reeves, growth, growth, growth. And now it's not happened. They're just blaming Brexit.
How are you, Ben?
I'm good. How are you?
It's been a while, yeah. I've noticed you're very sneery in your tone about Keir Starmer. But I haven't noticed, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I haven't seen enough of you. Are you as sneery about Nigel Farage? Because he was one of the blokes who led us into this mess in the first place.
Well, Nigel Farage isn't in government. Nigel Farage has never been in government. There was 2 campaigns to the Leave campaign. If you want to talk about, for example, which people do, the 350 million on the side of a bus, that was Boris, not Nigel. And actually, the NHS gets more than that now anyway. But, I mean, Nigel Farage isn't in power. He's not the one who agreed the Brexit deal in 2019 or whenever it was. They've just completely ballsed it up. The establishment politicians, and let me tell you, Matthew, viewers watching now make no distinction between Labour and the Conservative Party. They are the uni party. So they, together, all these lords and right honourable people, they messed it up. They betrayed the will of the people. So Nigel Farage,
just a couple of things,
isn't
Ben,
to blame for it.
I think there might be a slight delay on our line, but just a couple of things on that. First of all, you remember that breaking point poster where Nigel Farage tried to scare us all that if we stayed in the EU...
he was right, wasn't he? How true was it?
If we stayed in the EU, that migrants would be flooding from further afield, from outside the EU, into the EU and then into Britain. And look at the number of people who've sought asylum in our country since we Brexited. Second point, you've just described the Tories and Labour, Ben, as the uni party. But you're a clever bloke, right? And you can smell nonsense, I think, from a distance. You can sniff it out, right? You say that Nigel Farage is not in government. The bloke's been leading the polls, hasn't he? Or Reform have been leading the polls for some time. So I think it behoves a little scrutiny. And I've done a little bit of research myself. Nigel Farage...
But that's not in government. Matthew, you know... Hang on a second. Wait. Wait. Leading polls isn't in government. He can't do anything. So that's not some gotcha. Leading polls means nothing. We always hear, okay, you're leading polls. Okay? How do you convert that into seats?
Ben, listen to this. This was Nigel Farage, fellow presenter on the channel, in October. He said, "My message to you is clear, plain and simple. Never trust a Tory." Right? Never trust. He said, "Did you get that? I'll repeat it. Never trust a Tory. They will always let you down. They will always betray you. You know, because you're a journalist, how many former or current Tory MPs Nigel Farage has welcomed into reform. It stands at 26, if my maths are correct. That is astonishing. You've just called Labour and the Tories the uni party. Nigel Farage is turning reform into the Conservative.
I agree. Matthew, if you're active on what was Twitter, X a lot. You go through my timeline. I have criticised the arrival of Tories. I've long said it. And by the way, I'm not a Reform member. I'm not a Reform voter or a backer. I've known Nigel Farage for a long time. I'm not here to bat for Nigel Farage. I couldn't care less. I think we're cooked either way. But I've said many times on X in recent weeks, voters I know don't want all these Tories joining Reform, particularly Nadhim Zahawi, who was wanting to vaccinate children. I was very upset with that. So I agree with you. I completely agree with you. But going back to the original reason why you're on, is our lack of growth due to Brexit?
I would suggest to you, look, it's very difficult to pinpoint why growth is as it is and why it isn't as high as we would all like it to be. But I would suggest to you, and I'm not an economist, that our failure to grow as much as we would like is partly and significantly down to Brexit, but it is also probably partly down to the Ukraine war, and it is also probably partly down to the pandemic. The Ukraine war and the pandemic happened around the same time as Brexit was taking effect. It's very difficult to distinguish all of those factors, but there's no doubt in my mind, that Brexit has made us poorer. Now, you might point to other European countries that aren't doing particularly well, but we might be doing better than they were if we were still in the European Union. By the way, are we going to rejoin the European Union? I'm not going to say I'll eat my England rugby hat if we do in the next 5 years or so. I would be unbelievably surprised if we did. Are we going to go back to free movement of workers? Free movement of people? I would, again, almost be prepared to eat my hat. And I think that is probably the biggest concern of your viewers, although obviously I can't speak for them.
Yeah. All right.
And yet immigration after Brexit, as you know, because you've described it yourself, no doubt, as the so-called Boris wave, went through the roof. So have we, as a country, have we benefited? Do most people think we've benefited from Brexit? Of course not. Do most people think it was a mistake? Do most people think it was a mistake? Yes.
All right, come on, Matthew, make your point. Right, on your points, yes, Germany are in the same predicament as us, no growth. They're still in the European Union, as you said as well. So, but also, I would point to America. They've just clocked GDP of more than 5%. They had a pandemic. They were involved in the Ukraine war more than anybody else, shifting tens of billions of dollars to Ukraine. They've just clocked. I'll point back to Germany. They've got the same growth. Yeah, but again, I'll point back to Germany, the same growth. I think the real reason, Matthew, and I'll get your take on this, is net zero. Konstantin Kisin made a great point on Question Time the other night. Let me play you a clip and get your take. Let's take a look at this.
Can I just first of all ask Douglas and James, what percentage of global carbon emissions is Britain responsible for?
Historically or in present
Currently.
terms? About 1%? About
1%. 1%. So if we reduce our carbon emissions to zero and destroy our economy even more than we already have, we will reduce global carbon emissions by 1%. That's what we're talking about. Now, that's what we're talking about, right? And the promise of net zero was, well, it doesn't matter that it's 1% because Britain is a global leader. We will inspire the world if we destroy our industry and hand it over to China, who's going to make the same things that we still need but dirtier, and then we ship them back here on ships that use the dirtiest fuel imaginable. If we do that, the Chinese will be inspired to commit industrial suicide as well. The Chinese clearly are not as stupid as our leaders, so they haven't committed industrial suicide. That is what net zero has done. We have the highest industrial electricity prices in the developed world.
That's the common denominator, isn't it, Matthew? It's net zero. You can't have, I agree with Konstantin, you can't have growth and net zero at the same time, which is why the US is clocking more than 5%, well, 4% every quarter.
Konstantin, I'll play the argument as well as the man in a moment. This is an internet chat, right, with a lot of followers on X that you've just been talking about. And he thinks that our very recently former Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, someone who I was critical of, isn't English because he's a brown Hindu. So forgive me if I don't use constant kissing as the Bible on this or anything else. On the substance of the argument, it's absolutely right that net zero as a major matter of public policy is scrutinised and that questions are asked about it. Of course it is. Do we have a climate crisis? Yes, we do. Look at the data. Do I think that we, let me just make the argument, not just as a country, but as a species, right? Which is one of the reasons I think it was probably, on balance, difficult decision, the right thing for Keir Starmer to go and talk to the Chinese dictator the other day. Do we need to tackle climate change as a species? Yes. Is leadership important? Yes. Is offshoring our carbon footprint partially? Is that helping? Probably not. And therefore, we have to talk to other world leaders and get our collective act together to sort out as best we can climate change. But there are also, Ben, and you'll know this, again, as a bright bloke, loads of opportunities, commercial opportunities in turning our economy greener.
All right, well, I'm still waiting to hear about them. Matthew, thanks for your company. Appreciate it. Have a good week, and we'll catch up soon. What?
Do a bit of research. There's loads of evidence of the ways in which greenifying our economy is going to be good for jobs.
Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah, is that the same research from the 1970s that said kids in Britain wouldn't know what snow was by the year 2000, that Britain would be in a Siberian climate by this year, that, you know, the sea levels would be rising? I mean, OK, just leave it. Matthew, thank you. Appreciate it. Right. Oh, climate change, eh? I don't know. I'm losing the will. Still ahead on The Late Show Live.
Greenland. Officially a territory of Denmark, now a new power is making its move on the island.
I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force.
Right, President Trump ramps up his push to secure parts of Greenland, and tonight I'm very excited to bring you an exclusive first look at our brand new documentary from GB News from the region. We've been on the ground. Steve Edgington has been doing some stellar work, and he's here very shortly, but also tonight on the show.
We have the biggest, most powerful ships in the world over there, very close, a couple of days, and hopefully we'll make a deal. If we don't make a deal, then we'll find out whether or not he was right.
War, what is it good for? President Trump hits back at Iran's claims the US is looking to start a war and sets a deadline for a deal on nuclear weapons to be struck. I think they're going to strike next week. What do I know? This is The Late Show Live, back in just a tick.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As the first week of February begins, the weather is still going to be very similar to what we saw in January. Many grey skies around, and there will be some more outbreaks of rain to come. Now, it was a chilly start, especially across Northern Ireland this morning. We had some icy patches here, but now things are starting to cloud over through this morning. We will see a few outbreaks of some showers across central England and Wales, and a bit more persistent rain across eastern Scotland as well. Winds here are pretty strong. We could see some gale force winds up towards those Northern Isles. Temperatures wise, around what we would expect for the beginning of February, between sort of 6 and 9 degrees across the country. Now, this rain band across the south coming across the channel, that is going to move its way northwards. So we do have another rain warning across the southwest through this evening and into tomorrow. Plenty of rain there already, so the ground is pretty saturated. A few more showers across Northern Ireland, and that more persistent rain across Scotland will continue. A lot of that rain across those higher hills is turning towards snow as we go through this evening, and the winds are still remaining pretty strong across that eastern coast as well. Now, like I said, this rain will continue to move its way northwards. Places like Devon, Cornwall, Dorset have already seen over 200 millimetres across the course of January. So the ground is very saturated, and any rain that will fall will lead towards more flooding issues. But most places staying frost-free overnight. A lot of places staying around 3 or 4 degrees as we start Tuesday morning. Now, those rains towards the very far southwest will slowly start to ease through the morning, but otherwise a very damp start across the southern half of the UK. A little bit drier up towards the north, still clinging on to a lot of that cloud, but those winds again are picking up through the day, especially across that northeastern coast and those higher hills. But it will be a much fresher day to come. Temperatures up towards the north, highs of around 4 or 5 degrees.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back to the Late Show Live. Thank you for your says on gbnews.com/your say. Kay, you've said, Ben, you need to stop being entertaining. We need to go to bed or get on with our day. I'm in Japan. Arigato, Kay. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed Japan. I loved it last year. Right, let's move on. President Trump has hit back at a tweet from the Iranian Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who took to X earlier today to say the Americans should know that if they start a war, this time it will be a regional war. Speaking from Mar-a-Lago a little earlier today, President Trump made his response crystal clear.
Sir, on Iran, the Supreme Leader today said that attack could spark a regional war, giving you response to that.
Why wouldn't he say that? Of course you're going to say that, but we have the biggest, most powerful ships in the world over there, very close, couple of days, and hopefully we'll make a deal. If we don't make a deal, then we'll find out whether or not he was right.
In the studio in Washington is the Senior Director at the Foundation of Defense of Democracies, Behnam Ben Talebu. Behnam, welcome along. Welcome back to the Late Show Live. Okay, the big question is, are they going to strike America?
That's certainly the million-dollar question in Iran. When you manage to get some voice notes out or calls from Iran, that's all they're saying. Will he strike? Will he strike? All eyes literally are trained on the skies to see if America or Israel will hold the Ayatollahs and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps accountable right now. I got to tell you, some are disheartened by the plays, the last-minute intercepts by some American allies in the region, like Egypt, like Turkey, like Qatar, less so Saudi, which seems to have changed its position.
Well, did Saudi not say the other night they wouldn't allow the US to use their airspace or bases? Is that still the stance?
That is the stance publicly, but also you just had a major Saudi official in Washington late last week where, based on some of the leaks and readouts from those meetings, it seems like Saudi wouldn't mind a strike.
I just feel, and maybe you can fill me in on this, that I think the Iranian protesters, the courageous, brave people on the ground who have literally given their lives in the thousands to this, would feel a little bit betrayed if President Trump did come to some sort of peace deal.
I agree with you 100%. And first and foremost, strategically, it would not be a peace deal. The Ayatollahs would basically be giving a promissory note. So that's why there is no nuclear off-ramp to this humanitarian crisis. Trump drew not one, not two, but between 8 and 9 red lines in the month of January when it came to the protester crackdown by the Islamic Republic. Not a single one of those had to do with the nuclear issue. So to think that we can pivot to a nuclear deal, which, by the way, there isn't really much room for because Trump successfully destroyed their enrichment facilities back in June.
Let me just play you a clip from the Iranian foreign minister. It's a guy called Abbas Araghchi. He had this to say on the issue with CNN earlier today. Take a look.
It is obvious to us that there are certain elements, certain parties who want to drag President Trump into this war for their own benefits. And I think President Trump is wise enough to make a correct decision.
Had you seen that clip before?
Yes.
What's your take on it?
Listen, the first thing I'll say is I'm not sure why major mainstream American and Western press are still giving some of these officials the time of day, let alone bothering to post up inside the Islamic Republic. They should be using every single opportunity to grill them on what is the most brutal crackdown from state against the street, not just in the 47-year history of the Islamic Republic, but in the past 2 centuries of contemporary Iranian history.
The big question is if President Trump does strike, and do you know what? I hope he does, because they've ordered something like 20 more B-2 bombers since that last strike in what month?
Success breeds success.
Exactly. So yeah, put the B-2s to use. But I mean, if and when they do strike and the regime does fall, which many people want, who fills the vacuum? Reza Pahlavi?
Well, this is why we need a political strategy. Whether you are for military intervention or not, the fact of the matter is you have to nest whatever tactic you're using into a larger strategy. And this approach the West is taking, like a one-and-done approach, simply isn't going to cut it. Because the Ayatollahs know that the Middle East is littered with a bunch of military victories for the West, but very few political victories for the West. So that's why it's imperative, I think, for the Trump administration now to actually be considering and even go ahead and meet the Crown Prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, as well as, of course, to begin to think about the day after. Consider very seriously this thing called the Iran Prosperity Project. Find ways to integrate Iran back into the community of nations, all of which begins once you flip the script on the Ayatollahs and empower the most pro-American and most pro-Israeli street inside the Middle East.
And just for context, for viewers or listeners who are tuning in, Reza Pahlavi is the exiled crown prince who, his father was the leader.
The late Shah of Iran.
Yeah. He was in Washington, D.C., Pahlavi, the other week, saying he's got a plan, he's got a transition team ready. It's not a permanent position, but he can be a transition leader until democracy is restored.
We just need a bridge to a post-Islamic Republic future and have the people decide, monarchy or republic.
Iran, the supreme leader, has warned of regional war if the US attacks. What does that mean, regional war?
This is now Iran's supreme leader, who's also the commander-in-chief of that country, re-upping a line that we heard from military folks and political folks for the past week and a half, which is that if America strikes, whether it's limited or not, whether it looks like Venezuela or whether it looks like Iraq, whatever happens, they're trying to threaten a region-wide war. The challenge is the Islamic Republic might be successful. They might draw blood. And here they're forgetting that the one consistent red line Donald Trump has stood by is if you spill 1 ounce of American blood, we're coming after you. So the Ayatollahs think this is a deterrent. This actually might be the inducement to a much larger conflict.
So when they say regional war, I mean, who would ally themselves with Iran if America struck?
None. They would just expand their targets beyond Israel.
Right. Okay. I mean, I guess that
no one wants to get aboard a sinking ship.
No, you could say they're doing that anyway, though, with their sleeper cells all across the West. You've had the head of MI5 in Britain the other day saying 20-odd terror attacks have been foiled, linked to the IRGC. The UK is just about to prescribe the IRGC as a terrorist group.
And that has to be stepped up.
About time, by the way. You know, America did it in, what, 2019?
2019, and the EU just finalized this decision.
Yeah, I mean, great, good start, but that in itself is a joke, because you had Keir Starmer. I keep making the comparison. Keir Starmer running joyously as a virtue signaller to recognise Palestine as a state, almost scuppering the peace deal. Marco Rubio said it, the Secretary of State. He said Macron and Starmer got up and made a big deal of recognising Palestine, almost ruining the peace deal between Hamas and Israel, and yet Starmer has taken so long to recognise the IRGC. Just on that point, do you know what the reluctance to that has been?
My guess is it's some war between the Home Office, the Foreign Office, and the Prime Minister's office. Either way, all of these debates about it's an arm of a foreign government. Well, if an arm of a foreign government is acting like a terrorist, I think the least we could do is actually call something that looks like a duck, that quacks like a duck, that walks like a duck, an actual duck.
Indeed. Well said, Benham. Thanks very much. Appreciate your company. Hopefully we'll catch up again soon. Thank you very much. Right, gbnews.com/your say. Is there anybody out there, any viewers, any listeners who doesn't think President Trump and America should strike Iran? I'd love to hear from you. Get in touch and I'll read your comments out. Still ahead on The Late Show Live.
Do you think Greenland could have defended itself if the US invaded?
Yes, of course. I mean, it's a bit funny because we have rifles and we are good hunters.
Could a tiny Arctic nation...
Greenland, officially a territory of Denmark, now a new power is making its move on the island.
I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force.
As the global row over Greenland's future escalates, GB News has travelled to the Arctic territory for an exclusive documentary just for you, the viewers and the listeners. We spoke to locals who say they're confident they could repel and even overcome an American invasion. With me now is in Washington is GB News US correspondent Steve Edgington, who travelled to Greenland. First of all, how do you get there? Is it via Iceland?
Yes, you have to fly all the way to Iceland and then back towards America to Greenland. It's kind of an odd journey.
Ah, interesting. Okay, so you you spent some time there. How was it? What did you find? And you've got the documentary, of course. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I interviewed lots of locals. This was the week when Donald Trump was making his threats, even going to invade Greenland, he was saying. He made that bombastic speech at Davos, and then a few hours later, he kind of backed down and he had this deal with Mark Rutte. But I was there during this whole chaotic time when Greenlanders were reacting to the speeches from Donald Trump, to his tweets and so on. And I think they were genuinely terrified of being invaded. There was a press conference with local ministers telling people to prepare for provisions for 5 days in case of an emergency, in case of an invasion. I spoke to locals. You know, it seems comical to us, but for them it's very, very serious. This was their country. They're very proud. They're nationalistic. Although my sense was that Greenlanders are very much on the left of politics. This isn't like a kind of Hungarian nationalism or something. This was a more sort of SNP style nationalism against the big bully, you know, neighbour, which would be the United States, in Britain's case, England. So it was interesting that a lot of people there were kind of rallying around the flag, who normally would be liberal type people, and even saying to me that they're prepared to defend their homeland with weapons. And this was the interesting thing, that everyone I asked said, we have guns, we have rifles, we're hunters, we love hunting seals and everything else, and we're ready to fight and take on the US military.
Well, let's take a quick look. This is what Greenlanders told you about a possible US invasion.
If it was a military invasion, I think people will be prepared to defend themselves because we have guns in our house, we have weapons, because we are hunters. So we joke a little bit about that.
They are very good at taking good shots with all their hunting, and there is no doubt that everyone would come and fight.
Was that an air rifle or was that a BB gun? What is it?
That was the real deal. That was an actual hunting rifle with a silencer on. And the woman in that clip, her son was showing me the rifle. He said you have to have the silencer on in case the animals hear it when they go hunting for the deer and so on. So it was really interesting. This thing could have killed a human. I doubt they would have done very well against real sort of Navy SEALs rather than the seals in the ocean, which is what they're used to hunting. I have to say, I suspect rather that the US military would do pretty well against these Greenlanders. They haven't really got an army, it's the Danes who protect them.
Just tell me, are they allied? Are they loyal to the Danes, or do they just not want any colonisers at all?
So most of the people who who are Greenlandic, who have Inuit kind of blood, I would say they don't want to be part of Denmark. They want to be sovereign nation, an independent country.
But how would they survive?
Well, that's a good question. They say they would rely on fishing. That's a big industry out there, and they make a lot of money from that. But they do rely on welfare subsidies from the Danish government. So that's a big question, I think, for Greenlanders. But they say, well, look, we've had lots of historic abuses from the Danish government in the past. This is something I investigate in the film. For example, up from the 1930s up until the 1990s, you had local Inuit women being forcibly sterilized by Danish authorities to control the population. This may have been like political control to make sure that Denmark continues to have control over Greenland in terms of the Danish people there versus the Inuit people there.
That seems to be a theme among sort of colonising countries. I remember something in Canada maybe, or maybe Alaska, where something similar was going on as well. I think we've got one more clip, have we? I think this is Greenlanders who were saying that they would absolutely beat the USA in a war. Can we take a look?
Do you think Greenland could have defended itself if the US invaded?
Yes, of course. I mean, it's a bit funny because we have rifles and we are good hunters. We have good hunters, so yes, I think so. Because without soldiers, yes.
You think you could have beaten the United States?
Oh yes, I could have beaten. I mean, they cannot stand out with the cold weather, but we can do that. Yes.
Have you got a message for Donald Trump?
Oh, definitely. If he wants to come here as a friend, we'll treat him in a friendly way. If he wants to come here as an enemy, we'll fight him.
Well, President Trump hasn't been to Greenland, but his son did last year, Don Jr. with Charlie Kirk. Do you think that he's going to get the deal he wants, President Trump?
So he says that he's negotiated an outline of a deal with Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO. Now, Rutte doesn't actually have control over Greenland or over Denmark, who are Denmark is the country that actually ultimately will make the decision around Greenland's sovereignty. It looks like in the next few weeks we may learn things about this supposed deal that's been happening between Donald Trump and Mark Rutte. So that's what Donald Trump said on Air Force One last week, was that We will learn the details about this in the coming weeks. The negotiations are continuing. The big question is whether the US will get sovereignty over parts of Greenland, which is what I think the US military and Donald Trump wants, where they'll be able to have more of a free hand to use military bases across Greenland to shoot down missiles coming from Russia and China, and also to patrol the Arctic oceans as the sea ice melts. Those routes are becoming more open and available, so they're concerned about Chinese and Russian vessels. So these are the things that Donald Trump is worried about, the geostrategic reasons why he's interested in Greenland. But Denmark say, we will not give up any sovereignty over Greenland. This is our territory. The Greenlandic government, the kind of semi-autonomous government, they say, we want nothing to do with Donald Trump. We are Danish. We are pro-EU. We are pro-NATO.
And just lastly, you mentioned the other day when I met you for a coffee about, you said, I can't remember what it was, but you said there was some sort of like far leftist brainwashing amongst Greenlanders, and I was surprised how it what was it? Was it sort of white privilege or something?
So the people that I was speaking to a lot were talking about the idea of white privilege, which was an interesting concept to me in Greenland. I suspect that that's kind of US rhetoric that's kind of globalized.
It's amazing how that sort of spreads out, you know, that kind of thinking.
It wasn't just even the white privilege. I was walking around the capital of Greenland, Nuuk, a town of 20,000 people. They had pro-Palestine graffiti in Greenland. I'm like, what you know, Israel looking to Greenland?
Any trans flags around?
I didn't see any trans stuff. There was lots of anti-Donald Trump messages and lots of nationalistic messages. You know, we love Greenland. Greenland's not for sale. That was the kind of slogan that everyone was saying. We are not for sale. They had a shop which sold T-shirts and things saying Greenland's not for sale.
Oh, well, at least they're being entrepreneurial about it and trying to cash in. But Steve, great job. Where can viewers and listeners find this documentary?
So if you go to the GBNews YouTube channel, and you'll see it right there. Greenland's documentary, our documentary about Greenland on GBNews YouTube.
Great stuff. Look forward to it. Thank you, Steve. Good work. Yeah, the Palestine brain rot, it just spreads everywhere, doesn't it? Even in Greenland. I love also, I've flown many times over Greenland on the way home, back across the Atlantic. It just looks amazing from the air. Just, you know, huge swathes of beautiful ice. Right, still ahead on the Late Show Live. President Trump is being urged to go public on UFOs. Yes, this is right down my street, with claims that a major disclosure speech is ready to go. Are we alone in the universe? I think if we weren't, it would cook a lot of people's brains, and I'm here for it. Also, Zach Polanski, the Green Party leader, he's been vocal on President Trump again. Any guesses what he has to say? More on that in just a second.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As the first week of February begins, the weather is still going to be very similar to what we saw in January. Many grey skies around, and will be some more outbreaks of rain to come. Now, it was a chilly start, especially across Northern Ireland this morning. We had some icy patches here, but now things are starting to cloud over through this morning. We will see a few outbreaks of some showers across central England and Wales, and a bit more persistent rain across eastern Scotland as well. Winds here are pretty strong. We could see some gale force winds up towards those Northern Isles. Temperatures wise, around what we would expect for the beginning of February, between sort of 6 and 9 degrees across the country. Now, this rain band across the south coming across the channel, that is going to move its way northwards. So we do have another rain warning across the southwest through this evening and into tomorrow. Plenty of rain there already, so the ground is pretty saturated. A few more showers across Northern Ireland, and that more persistent rain across Scotland will continue. A lot of that rain across those higher hills is turning towards snow as we go through this evening, and the winds are still remaining pretty strong across that eastern coast as well. Now, like I said, this rain will continue to move its way northwards. Places like Devon, Cornwall, Dorset have already seen over 200 millimetres across the course of January. So the ground is very saturated, and any rain that will fall will lead towards more flooding issues. But most places staying frost-free overnight. A lot of places staying around 3 or 4 degrees as we start Tuesday morning. Now, those rains towards the very far southwest will slowly start to ease through the morning, but otherwise a very damp start across the southern half of the UK. A little bit drier up towards the north, still clinging on to a lot of that cloud, but those winds again are picking up through the day, especially across that northeastern coast and those higher hills. But it will be a much fresher day to come. Temperatures up towards the north, highs of around 4 or 5 degrees.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back. If you've stayed up this long so far, thank you for your loyalty. I have a flurry of very interesting stories to share with you before we say goodnight. My panel are back with me, Victoria Churchill and Simon Hankinson, and Paul Cox is down the line as well. Right, first of all, Zach Polansky, he has been talking about President Trump and getting himself in all sorts of knots about NATO. Take a look at this.
First of all, let's talk about if it's possible to reform NATO from within. I don't think it's possible because the United States, 86% of our arms imports come from the United States.
You just said your policy was to reform NATO from within. Now you're saying you don't think it is possible to do it. Which is it?
I think we can do more than one thing at once. So you can have step 1 and then step 2 and step 3. So let me outline that for you. Step 1, which is what has been trying to happen and clearly is not working, is to work with the United States. But we have a dangerous, unpredictable man who considers Vladimir Putin his friend, but brings Zelensky into the White House and shames him and disgraces him in front of the world.
Paul, I was thinking about Zach Polansky earlier, leader of the Green Party. Not only was I shocked at the fact that he is now he's a deeply unserious man who's in a serious position, but that so many people, according to the polls, are now willing to vote for him. That's even more shocking, Paul.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons for that is the vacuum that's been created by the Uniparty. Its absolute collapse in its legitimacy as the conventional two-party system has led to this huge vacuum, which at first we saw Nigel Farage fill, and then obviously from the left, Zach Polansky, who is incredibly unserious. His policies are that of student politics, if not primary school politics. None of it makes sense, Ben.
Simon, do you have any thoughts on Zach Polansky? Are you familiar with him? Do you know what his policies are?
I know what the Green Party is, and I've heard him speak before, and I think he's a little unserious. I mean, to make that accusation, that calumny that Donald Trump's friend is Vladimir Putin, it's just tired, and it has no basis in fact.
He also said he wants to reform NATO, and if it can't be reformed, I think essentially by kicking out the United States, who basically is NATO at this point. He says he wants to make a new alliance with European nations, Brazil, and some countries from the global south. Victoria.
Well, I think the addition of Brazil into that is quite interesting because Brazil obviously went pretty far left in their last election. But you know what I also think is interesting, I don't know how much you guys talk about it over in the UK, but in the US we have horseshoe theory, right? That, you know, kind of the left and the right flanks, they mirror each other. And so actually the idea to reform NATO, that was actually something that Secretary of State Marco Rubio was talking about on Capitol Hill when he was up there just this last week. You know, he was asked by Democrat senators of whether or not the Trump administration really still believed in the power of the NATO alliance, and Rubio was, you know, yeah, absolutely, we have to still be a part of NATO, but NATO needs reforms. And I think one of the things that the Trump administration is looking at between both the first and the second term is that they have gotten a lot of the other NATO allies to contribute more and more of their GDP. So I think the NATO allies are kind of caving to the demands of Trump, you know, saying, we've been really pulling this train forward for a number of years, and it's time for you guys to cough up. And so I think if the Trump administration, particularly with allies like Rubio, continues to put pressure on NATO, that it actually leaves more for everybody on the table to see, you know, they're contributing and also what they're getting out of it.
Just as well, Zach Polansky won't ever be in a position to make any decisions about NATO, because he wants to legalise crack and heroin, so we'll see how that goes. Elsewhere, talking about white guilt and British colonialism, I saw this clip online earlier today. I thought it was great. This clip is going viral about the truth of Britain's history. Take a look.
You've been lied to. They told you a story about Britain. Colonizers, slavers, oppressors. Here's what they didn't tell you. Your ancestors, the factory workers, the farm laborers, the shopkeepers, the miners, they didn't own slaves. They couldn't afford passage across the channel, let alone a plantation in Jamaica. They worked 14-hour days and died young and poor. But when they finally got a voice, they used it, not for themselves, to end injustice. More people signed petitions against slavery than could vote. Working families gave up sugar, their one small luxury, because they refused to taste cruelty. The powerful owned slaves. The people ended slavery. The powerful exploited children. The people stopped them. The powerful denied the vote. The people took it. Teenage girls with rotting jaws walked out of factories and won. 12 jurors chose prison over convicting an innocent man. But Britain didn't just end slavery here. They ended it everywhere.
Thousands of seamen, Royal Navy seamen, Paul, ended slavery over the course of decades, the blood that was shed. And you want to talk about reparations? Why don't we start repaying the families of those brave sailors who sailed the world, battling African kings and tribesmen, trying to get them to stop slavery?
Well, quite, Ben, absolutely. And it's not like we haven't mentioned it 900,000 times. This has been known for a very long time. By the way, it's incredibly stirring, that video. I'd like to see that video played in schools. I'd also like to see that video played in schools during Black History Month, because there are a lot of white kids I know that feel guilt. Young white children that feel guilt because they are told that they, because of their colour of their skin, are guilty in some way. And it's great to see a video just like that, Ben.
Yeah, Simon, any thoughts on that?
Look, I'm a former history teacher, and I want to see history taught, warts and all. And right now, all they're teaching is the warts. They're just teaching kids that their entire history is bad, and the truth is, it's checkered, but mostly one of incredible achievement that they should be proud of.
Why? What's the agenda? Who is doing that? Why are they teaching a slanted version of history?
I mean, it's a Marxist agenda that is, hates colonialism, it hates the West, it hates capitalism, it hates the family. It wants to rip all that down and, rebuild it with some socialist utopia. So you have to paint it in the worst possible light that you can. And that's what they've been trying to do by poisoning our kids through the educational system.
OK, let's move on to one more story. Well, two more, actually. Victoria, the Melania film, the First Lady Melania film, has had, have you heard about this, a great weekend at the box office. What's the deal?
I believe last numbers that I saw earlier today was it had made about $8 million on the debut weekend, which they are touting as a win for a documentary on a debut weekend, or I guess a documentary of its kind. I saw earlier today, even a CNN's media analyst was saying that it kind of beat some of the expectations that they had. Now, of course, there is a caveat with that they have talked about. I believe it was about $40 million was given to Melania herself for the movie, and about $35 million was spent just on the marketing. So, a yield of about 10% the first weekend. I'm not quite sure how that lives up, but I think overall audiences were happy. Those that did go see it, I saw several interviews with people that went around to the films.
Yeah, they love it. They love it. Let's take a quick look at a clip before we go. Let's take a look.
Here we go again.
I posted about this earlier, saying it was a great weekend for Melania, for the team, and some of the responses from the lefties was quite telling. Somebody said, "Americans don't care, sure is right. Bomb film doth bombed." Don't know what that means. What does that mean? Bomb film doth bombed. Somebody else said it will lose $50 million. Typical Trump failure. Somebody else said there are sane Americans out there who would rather watch paint dry. The others are true MAGA sycophants. And people not happy that the Melania film is a success. Well, sorry, but it has been. People do care. People like her. So stick that where the sun don't shine. One more story, which is right down my street. Paul, President Donald Trump is reportedly preparing a historic speech that could finally deliver a full UFO disclosure and confirm that alien life exists. I argue they're here already. I reckon there's non-humans walking around. Go on, Paul.
Yeah, I think Zach Polanski's one of them. But I would love to see this, Ben. I want them to just have cast iron proof, literal videos of aliens walking around, and it's just out in the open, Ben. That's what I want.
Are you a believer, Simon?
100%.
Victoria?
Yeah, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. There's definitely something else out there. There has to be.
Did we? You talked about it with me?
I think so.
Yeah.
Oh God,
all of us did.
Obsession with alien life. I do. Yeah. Sorry. I'm really into aliens and the universe and space. I think it's mathematically impossible there isn't life out there. Anyway, gbnews.com/yoursay. Let me know what you think about that. Could you imagine, Paul, if a massive mothership hovered above Parliament in London and announced themselves? I mean, people would have heart attacks, quite literally, I think.
They would. They genuinely would. Can I imagine it? Yes, I can. Do I want them to suck Keir Starmer up straight away and take him back to his home planet? Yes, I do, Ben.
Yeah, interesting. Oh, just on the Melania as well. Have you seen the film yet?
I've not seen it, actually. No, I've not seen it at all.
OK. Yeah, we managed to get a clip of it. Yeah, well, we went to see it yesterday. My dedicated producer saw it. I saw quite a lot of it online as well. I think it's one up to the lefties who just hate Trump for any reason possible, hate Melania. And yes, I think it was funded, Victoria, by Bezos, right? How much? 40 million?
Yeah, Amazon, they paid both for the production of it as well as the marketing.
Okay, so the first weekend took $9 million. I suspect they'll recoup that on, it's being shown on Prime, is it not?
I assume it will be eventually, yes.
Yeah, okay. One question I'd like to ask my panellists before I say goodnight. What are you up to tomorrow, Paul?
I'm going to do some reading tomorrow, Ben. I'm going to read a new book that I've bought that it's a bit of a secret to me. Someone's bought it for me and I'm going to read a new book. I like to read occasionally, Ben, so that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm going to chill out and read. Monday's my day off.
All right. Unfortunately, I haven't got time to ask you both, but I'm sure you're having a great day. Viewers and listeners, thank you for your company tonight. I appreciate it. And you, Simon, and you, Victoria. I'll see you again tomorrow night from midnight. I'm covering for Bev. I'll see you then. Sweet dreams and good night.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News.